Greece stands as a timeless bridge between ancient civilization and modern Mediterranean culture. This land of sun-drenched islands and weathered marble temples has shaped Western civilization for over 3 millennia. From the towering columns of the Acropolis to the whitewashed villages clinging to volcanic cliffs, Greece offers a journey through history, mythology, and natural beauty. The Aegean and Ionian Seas cradle over 6,000 islands, each with its own character and story. On the mainland, ancient sanctuaries and archaeological sites reveal the birthplace of democracy, philosophy, and Western art. The landscapes range from dramatic mountain peaks to crystalline waters that shimmer in shades of turquoise and sapphire. This documentary explores the most iconic destinations across Greece, from the classical monuments of Athens to the volcanic splendor of Santorini. The journey encompasses medieval fortresses, Byzantine monasteries suspended between earth and sky, and islands where myth and reality intertwine. Each location reveals another layer of Greece's extraordinary legacy as the cradle of European civilization. The story of Greece begins in Athens, where the foundations of Western civilization were laid over 2,500 years ago. The modern capital sprawls across the Attic Plain, home to nearly 4 million people, yet its ancient heart still dominates the skyline. The Acropolis rises 150 meters above the city on a massive limestone outcrop. This sacred rock has been inhabited since the 4th millennium BC, but reached its architectural zenith in the 5th century BC under Pericles. The monuments that crown the summit represent the pinnacle of classical Greek architecture and continue to influence design worldwide. The Parthenon stands as the most perfect expression of the Doric order. Built between 447 and 432 BC, this temple was dedicated to Athena Parthenos, the virgin goddess who gave the city its name. 46 columns surround the structure, each leaning slightly inward, creating an optical illusion of perfect straight lines. The precision of its construction remains extraordinary, with marble blocks fitted together without mortar, held only by iron clamps. Despite centuries of war, earthquake, and plunder, the Parthenon endures. Its golden Pentelic marble still glows in the Mediterranean sun, a testament to the vision of ancient architects. The Erechtheion presents a more complex architectural composition on the northern edge of the Acropolis. Built between 421 and 406 BC, this temple served multiple sacred purposes and housed several ancient cults. Its most famous feature remains the Porch of the Caryatids, where 6 female figures serve as columns, each carved from single blocks of marble. These maiden columns, standing at over 2 meters tall, have supported the temple's roof for 24 centuries. Below the Acropolis, the ancient agora spreads across 15 acres. This marketplace and civic center witnessed the birth of democracy in the 6th century BC. Here, Socrates questioned his students, philosophers debated in the shade of colonnades, and citizens voted on matters of state. The reconstructed Stoa of Attalos now houses the Agora Museum, its 2-story colonnade recreating the atmosphere of ancient commercial life. The Temple of Hephaestus overlooks the Agora from the Western Hill. Built around 450 BC, this Doric temple remains one of the best preserved ancient Greek structures in existence. Its survival owes much to its conversion into a Christian church in the 7th century AD, which protected it from demolition. Athens extends far beyond its ancient core, yet these monuments continue to define the city's identity. They stand not as ruins, but as living connections to the dawn of Western thought, art, and democratic ideals. High on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, 180 kilometers northwest of Athens, lies one of antiquity's most sacred sites. Delphi commanded a dramatic position on the mountainside, overlooking the valley of Phocis and the shimmering Gulf of Corinth beyond. For over 1,000 years, this sanctuary served as the spiritual center of the ancient Greek world. According to mythology, Zeus released 2 eagles from opposite ends of the earth, and they met at Delphi, marking it as the world's center. The Greeks marked this omphalos, or navel of the world, with a sacred stone that stood in the temple of Apollo. Kings, generals, and common citizens traveled from across the Mediterranean to consult the oracle, whose prophecies shaped political decisions and military campaigns. The sacred way winds up the mountainside, passing the ruins of treasuries built by various Greek city-states. These small temple-like structures held offerings to Apollo and served as declarations of wealth and power. The treasury of the Athenians, reconstructed in the early 20th century, showcases the elegant proportions of Doric architecture on a miniature scale. The Temple of Apollo dominates the sanctuary from its terrace position. Built in the 4th century BC, this was the 6th temple to occupy the site, replacing earlier structures destroyed by fire and earthquake. Only 6 columns remain standing today, yet they convey the temple's former grandeur. Within this temple, the Pythia sat upon her tripod, inhaling vapors from a chasm in the earth and delivering cryptic prophecies in a trance-like state. Modern research has revealed geological faults beneath the temple that may have released ethylene gas, potentially explaining the oracle's altered states of consciousness. Whether divine inspiration or geological phenomenon, the oracle's influence on ancient history remains undeniable. Above the temple, the ancient theater commands spectacular views across the valley. Built in the 4th century BC and modified by the Romans, this theater could accommodate 5,000 spectators. Every 4 years, the Pythian Games were celebrated here, second only to the Olympics in importance. Still higher up the mountain, the stadium sits in splendid isolation. This athletic venue, dating from the 5th century BC, hosted foot races and other competitions during the Pythian Games. Its stone seats stretch 177 meters along the mountainside, accommodating 7,000 spectators. The Delphi Archaeological Museum houses treasures recovered from the sanctuary, including the famous charioteer, one of the finest bronze sculptures to survive from classical antiquity. This life-sized figure, created around 470 BC, preserves extraordinary detail in its flowing robes and serene facial expression. Delphi's power waned with the rise of Christianity, and the sanctuary was finally closed by Emperor Theodosius in 394 AD. The oracle fell silent, but the ruins continue to speak of a time when gods walked among mortals and prophecy shaped the course of history. 200 kilometers southeast of the mainland, Santorini emerges from the Aegean Sea in a dramatic crescent of volcanic cliffs. This island, known in antiquity as Thera, bears the scars of one of history's most cataclysmic eruptions. Around 1600 BC, a volcanic explosion tore the island apart, leaving behind the flooded caldera that defines its landscape today. The island's main towns cling to the caldera rim, 300 meters above the sea. Fira, the capital, cascades down the cliff face in a tumble of whitewashed buildings and blue-domed churches. This distinctive cycladic architecture creates a striking contrast against the dark volcanic rock and the deep blue waters of the caldera. The sunset from Oya at the northern tip of the island draws thousands of visitors each evening. This village represents the quintessential image of Santorini, with its cave houses carved into the volcanic cliff and its windmill silhouettes against the sky. As the sun descends toward the horizon, it bathes the white walls in shades of gold and pink, creating one of the Mediterranean's most photographed scenes. Santorini's volcanic nature becomes evident in its beaches. Red Beach, near the ancient site of Akrotiri, displays dramatic crimson cliffs formed from volcanic rock. Kamari Beach on the eastern coast spreads for 5 kilometers, its sand consisting entirely of black volcanic pebbles. Parissa Beach offers similar black sand and clear waters against a backdrop of Mesa Vuno Mountain. The archaeological site of Akrotiri reveals a Minoan city frozen in time by volcanic ash. Often called the Pompeii of the Aegean, this Bronze Age settlement was buried by the same eruption that transformed the island. Excavations have uncovered multi-story buildings with sophisticated drainage systems, colorful frescoes, and pottery dating back 3,600 years. The absence of human remains suggests the inhabitants had warning and evacuated before the catastrophic eruption. Ancient Thera occupies a mountain ridge between Kamari and Parissa beaches. This site preserves ruins from the 9th century BC through the Byzantine period, including temples, houses, and a theater overlooking the sea. The location offers panoramic views across the island and surrounding waters. The volcanic activity that shaped Santorini continues beneath the waves. The 2 islets in the center of the caldera, Nea Kameni and Pelea Kameni, are active volcanic cones that emerged from the sea in recent centuries. Hot springs near Pelea Kameni allow swimmers to experience the island's geothermal energy firsthand. Santorini's wines reflect the volcanic terroir that makes agriculture on the island so distinctive. Vines are trained in low, basket-shaped formations called coulures to protect the grapes from strong winds. The volcanic soil produces wines with unique mineral qualities, particularly the crisp white Assyrtiko variety. This island of extremes balances catastrophic geological history with stunning natural beauty. The same volcanic forces that destroyed ancient civilizations created one of the world's most dramatic and unforgettable landscapes. Just 40 kilometers north of Santorini, Mykonos presents a different face of the Cycladic Islands. This compact island, measuring only 85 square kilometers, has evolved from a quiet fishing community into one of the Mediterranean's most cosmopolitan destinations. Yet beneath the glamorous surface, traditional island life persists. Mykonos town, or Kora, forms a labyrinth of narrow streets and whitewashed houses around its harbor. The maze-like layout served a practical purpose in centuries past, confusing pirates who raided the Cyclades. Today, these winding alleys reveal hidden churches, family-run tavernas, and boutiques tucked into historic buildings. Bougainvillea, cascades over balconies and doorways painted in bright blues, greens, and reds. This explosion of color against the stark white walls creates the visual signature of Cycladic architecture. The town's 365 churches, one for each day of the year according to local tradition, punctuate the streetscape with their distinctive domes and bell towers. The iconic windmills stand on a promontory overlooking Mykonos town. These 7 thatched cylindrical structures date from the 16th century when they ground grain for the island's inhabitants. Though no longer operational, the windmills remain Mykonos's most photographed landmarks, particularly at sunset when they silhouette against the sky. Little Venice occupies the waterfront on the western edge of town. Here, 18th century houses rise directly from the sea, their wooden balconies suspended over the waves. Originally built by merchants and sea captains, these houses feature colorful doors and windows that open onto the water. As evening approaches, waves crash against the foundations, while the setting sun illuminates the facades in golden light. Panagia Paraportiani stands as Mykonos's most important religious monument. This church complex actually consists of 5 separate churches, 4 on the ground level and 1 built above them. Construction began in 1425 and continued for over 200 years, resulting in an asymmetrical structure whose whitewashed forms seem sculpted by the wind. Beyond the main town, Mykonos reveals quieter corners. Ano Mera, the island's second village, centers on the 16th century Panagia Turliani Monastery. This working monastery features an ornate marble fountain in its courtyard and a church decorated with Florentine wood carvings and icons. The island's coastline presents a remarkable variety of beaches. Paradise and Super Paradise beaches on the southern coast attract international crowds with their golden sand and crystal clear waters. Elia Beach, stretching for nearly a kilometer, offers more space and calmer atmosphere. On the northern coast, Agios Sostis remains undeveloped, its turquoise waters and pebble shore reflecting the island's simpler past. The nearby island of Delos, accessible by boat from Mykonos, holds immense archaeological significance. According to mythology, Delos was the birthplace of Apollo and Artemis, making it one of the holiest sites in ancient Greece. The island served as a major religious, political, and commercial center from the 3rd millennium BC until the 1st century AD. The Terrace of the Lions on Delos presents one of the most striking images from the ancient world. These marble lions, carved from Naxian marble around 600 BC, once numbered between 9 and 16. 5 remain in their original location, though weathered by time, still guarding the sacred lake where Apollo was born. Mykonos demonstrates how Greek islands balance preservation and transformation. Traditional architecture and customs endure even as the island welcomes visitors from around the world. The same winds that turned the historic windmills now carry the scent of jasmine through ancient streets where modern life flourishes. The largest and most southerly of the Greek islands lies 160 kilometers from the mainland across the Libyan Sea. Crete stretches 260 kilometers from west to east, its mountainous spine reaching heights of over 2,400 meters. This island served as the cradle of Europe's first advanced civilization, the Minoans, whose sophisticated society flourished 4,000 years ago. The Palace of Knossos, just south of modern Heraklion, represents the pinnacle of Minoan architecture and culture. British archaeologist Arthur Evans excavated this vast complex in the early 20th century, revealing a labyrinthine structure that covered 15,000 square meters. The palace featured advanced engineering including running water, sewage systems, and natural ventilation through light wells. The site's complexity likely inspired the legend of the labyrinth, where King Minos imprisoned the Minotaur. Vibrant frescoes throughout the palace depict dolphins leaping through waves, priestesses performing rituals, and young athletes somersaulting over charging bulls. These images reveal a sophisticated society with strong maritime connections and elaborate religious ceremonies. The throne room contains a gypsum throne still in its original position after 38 centuries. Frescoes of griffins flank the seat, guardians of the royal authority. The throne faces a lustral basin used in purification rituals, suggesting that Minoan kingship combined political and religious power. Baistos, on the southern coast, presents the island's second most important Minoan palace. This complex commands spectacular views across the Messara Plain to Mount Ida, Crete's highest peak. The palace's architectural sophistication matches Knossos, with grand staircases, storage magazines, and workshops organized around a central court. Here, archaeologists discovered the famous Phaistos disc, a clay disc inscribed with undeciphered symbols spiraling from its center to its edge. Crete's landscape varies dramatically from coast to mountain interior. The Samaria Gorge cuts through the White Mountains in western Crete, creating one of Europe's longest gorges at 16 kilometers. Limestone cliffs rise 300 meters on either side of the path, which descends from an elevation of 1,200 meters to sea level. The gorge narrows at the Iron Gates, where the passage between cliff faces measures only 3 meters wide. Belos Lagoon, at Crete's northwestern tip, showcases the island's natural beauty in a different register. Turquoise waters lap against white sand beaches, while a small islet in the lagoon can be reached on foot at low tide. The shallow, warm waters create gradations of blue and green that shift with the sun's angle throughout the day. Chania, Crete's second-largest city, preserves a well-maintained old town from its Venetian period. The Venetian harbor features a 16th-century lighthouse and stone arsenals where galleys were built and repaired. Narrow streets lined with Ottoman and Venetian buildings create an atmospheric maze behind the waterfront. The city's varied architecture reflects successive occupations by Romans, Byzantines, Venetians, and Ottomans. Rethymno, between Chania and Heraklion, combines a Venetian old town with an extensive sandy beach. The Fortezza, a massive fortress built by the Venetians in the 16th century, dominates the headland. Below, the old town's Renaissance buildings feature wooden balconies overhanging cobblestone streets. The Arkadi Monastery in the hills south of Rethymno holds deep significance in Cretan history. In 1866, hundreds of Cretan rebels and civilians sought refuge here during an uprising against Ottoman rule. Rather than surrender, they ignited gunpowder stores in the monastery, choosing death over capture. The monastery's ornate Venetian facade, dating from 1587, stands as both architectural achievement and memorial to Cretan resistance. Spinalonga Island, off Crete's northeastern coast, tells a more recent story. Venetian fortifications from 1579 encircle this small island, which later served as a leper colony from 1903 to 1957. The settlement's houses, church, and hospital remain intact, creating a poignant reminder of the isolation endured by those confined here. Crete's layers of history accumulate like geological strata, each civilization leaving its mark on the landscape. From Minoan palaces to Venetian fortresses, from Byzantine monasteries to Ottoman minarets, the island preserves 4,000 years of Mediterranean history within its shores. Where the Aegean meets the Mediterranean, Rhodes rises from the sea as a green and mountainous island. This strategic position at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa has made Rhodes valuable to successive civilizations for over 3,000 years. Today, the island's medieval old town stands as one of Europe's best preserved walled cities. The Knights of St. John, also known as the Hospitallers, ruled Rhodes from 1309 to 1522. During this period, they transformed the capital into an impregnable fortress, building massive walls that still encircle the old town for 4 kilometers. The fortifications reach 12 meters thick in places, bristling with towers, gates, and artillery positions designed to withstand Ottoman sieges. The Palace of the Grand Master commands the highest point of the medieval city. Originally built in the 14th century, the palace was devastated by an ammunition explosion in 1856. Italian occupiers reconstructed it in the 1930s, creating a somewhat idealized version of medieval architecture. Nevertheless, its imposing towers and vast courtyards convey the military and administrative power concentrated here during the Knights' rule. The Street of the Knights descends from the palace through the heart of the old town. This cobblestone thoroughfare, lined with inns of the different tongues of the order, remains virtually unchanged since the 15th century. Each inn housed knights from a particular region of Europe, including France, Spain, Italy, and England. The street's austere stone facades and Gothic arches transport visitors back to medieval times. The Archaeological Museum occupies the former Hospital of the Knights, one of medieval Europe's most advanced medical facilities. The building's 2-story cloister surrounding a courtyard demonstrates Gothic architecture adapted to Mediterranean climate. Inside, collections span Rhodes's long history, from Mycenaean pottery to Roman sculptures. The museum's most famous piece, the Aphrodite of Rhodes, portrays the goddess emerging from the sea in marble, dating from the 1st century BC. Beyond the walls, the modern city spreads along the northern coast. Mandraki Harbor welcomes yachts and cruise ships where ancient war galleys once moored. 2 bronze deer statues stand on columns at the harbor entrance, marking the traditional location of the Colossus of Rhodes. This ancient wonder of the world depicted the sun god Helios standing 33 meters tall. Completed around 280 BC, the bronze statue took 12 years to construct and stood for only 56 years before an earthquake toppled it in 226 BC. The broken Colossus lay where it fell for 8 centuries, described by Pliny the Elder as impressive even in ruin. Arab conquerors finally removed the remains in 654 AD, supposedly requiring 900 camels to transport the bronze. The Acropolis of Lindos, 70 kilometers south of Rhodestown, provides the island's most dramatic ancient site. A Doric temple to Athena. Lindia crowns a rocky promontory 116 meters above the sea. The original temple dated to the 4th century BC, though earlier sanctuaries occupied the site since the 10th century BC. Hellenistic stoas and a Byzantine church cluster below the temple ruins. The village of Lindos spreads down the hillside below the Acropolis, its white houses forming a maze of narrow streets too steep for vehicles. Captains' mansions from the 16th and 17th centuries feature elaborately carved doorways and pebble mosaic courtyards. 2 bays flank the promontory, their calm waters and golden beaches making Lindos one of Rhodes' most popular destinations. The Valley of the Butterflies, inland from the western coast, offers a different natural phenomenon. From June to September, thousands of Jersey tiger moths gather in this cool, tree-shaded ravine. The moths cover tree trunks and rocks, their orange and black underwings creating a spectacular display when disturbed. The valley's microclimate and abundant water sources attract the moths during their mating season. Ancient Camiros on the northwestern coast reveals a Hellenistic city that flourished from the 3rd to 1st centuries BC. Unlike Rhodestown or Lindos, Camiros was abandoned rather than continuously inhabited, preserving its ancient street plan and public buildings. The site's terraced layout showcases classical urban planning, with residential areas stepped up the hillside above the marketplace and temples. Rhodes' strategic importance continued into the 20th century. Italian occupation from 1912 to 1943 left Art Deco buildings in the new town and extensive archaeological excavations at ancient sites. German occupation followed, then British administration, before Rhodes united with Greece in 1948. This layering of cultures enriches rather than confuses Rhodes' identity. Ancient Greek temples, Byzantine churches, medieval fortifications, Ottoman mosques, and Italian architecture coexist within one island. Each era's contributions remain visible, creating a living museum of Mediterranean civilization. In central Greece, 400 kilometers northwest of Athens, nature has created one of the world's most extraordinary landscapes. The Meteora rock formations rise from the Thessalian plain like stone pillars reaching toward heaven. These massive columns of sandstone and conglomerate, carved by water and wind over millions of years, tower up to 400 meters above the valley floor. The name Meteora derives from the Greek word meaning suspended in air, an apt description for the monasteries perched atop these natural towers. Byzantine hermits first settled in caves among these rocks in the 9th century, seeking isolation for prayer and contemplation. By the 14th century, monks began constructing monasteries on the pinnacles themselves, creating architectural achievements that seem to defy gravity and logic. At its peak, 24 monasteries crown the Meteora rocks. Only 6 remain active today, preserved as functioning religious communities and UNESCO World Heritage Sites. These monasteries required extraordinary effort to build, with monks hauling materials up cliff faces using rope ladders, nets, and winches powered by muscle alone. The town of Kalambaka nestles at the base of the Meteora rocks, serving as the main access point for visitors. Its Byzantine Church of the Dormition of the Virgin, dating from the 11th century, preserves frescoes and architecture predating the monasteries above. The town's location provides constant views of the rock formations that have drawn pilgrims and travelers for over a millennium. Meteora represents more than architectural achievement or geological wonder. These monasteries embody the human impulse toward transcendence, built by those who sought proximity to heaven through physical elevation and spiritual discipline. The rocks themselves seem shaped by divine purpose, creating natural pedestals for mankind's reach toward the eternal. From the marble columns of Athens to the volcanic cliffs of Santorini, from medieval roads to the sky-suspended monasteries of Meteora, Greece reveals layer upon layer of human achievement set against landscapes of extraordinary beauty. This journey through the Greek world has traced the foundations of Western civilization while celebrating the natural wonders that have inspired artists, philosophers, and travelers for millennia. The ancient sites stand not as dusty ruins, but as living connections to the birth of democracy, philosophy, art, and science. The islands demonstrate how geography shapes culture, their isolation preserving distinct traditions while their harbors welcomed influences from across the Mediterranean. Greece remains a place where mythology and history intertwine, where ancient stones still speak, and where the wine-dark sea continues to shape the lives of those who call these shores home.